How are you? Back to the pre-Shavuos lecture series. We are very, very delighted and honored to have with us Rebbetzin Tzivia Friedman. How are you? Back who is going to talk on the book of Ruth. As you know, it's customary to learn Ruths on the holiday of Shavuos. Many shuls read it in the synagogue, either the first day or the second day of Shavuos, and in the Chabad communities where they do Tikkun Leil Shavuos on the first night, they read it at the Tikkun. However, we are privileged today to have a lecture on it from Rebbetzin Tzivia Friedman. I just want to thank again our sponsors, Eliezer Abramsky, who sponsored today's lecture series, and to quote him, "In memory of my mother, who was always so good to me. May Hashem bless her soul." And her name was Chaya Bat Dober, also sponsored by the Seneca Club, in loving memory of Tzivia Bas Yosef, who was the father of Fran Bast. So may their souls have an aliyah, be elevated to the highest realms in the merit of the learning of Torah and the inspiration of so many people. So without further ado, it is truly an honor and privilege to introduce to you Rebbetzin Tzivia Friedman. At the end of the discussion, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions on the Zoom. Okay, we're live.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Okay, it's afternoon, it's 12 o'clock or just about, and we're having the pleasure of talking about Megillas Ruth, as the rabbi said. Thank you very much, Rabbi Raskin. This class is titled, okay, Your New Favorite Heroine. I have to say that as we begin, I suspect that she would probably be, for certain people, maybe your least favorite heroine as we begin, okay? But as the class proceeds, I do hope that she will become your new favorite heroine. Who was she? Why do we read this on Shavuos? And we'll hear a lot. Ruth is 4 chapters long for those people who want to follow or who will follow, like the rabbi said in Shul, when you'll see it. The 4 chapters of Ruth are, each one is a topic unto itself. The Megillah begins with tragedy. There's a famine in the land of Israel, and a very prestigious Jewish family leaves the land of Israel, Elimelech, Naomi, and their 2 children, Machlon and Kilion, and they go to the land of Moab. Moab is a country with a very bad rap amongst us Jews for multiple reasons. You know, we accept converts, genuine converts who want to embrace Torah and the Jewish way of life, and they're happily accepted. However, the converts from Moab are different. The converts from Moab, as we'll soon see, okay, can't just easily marry into the Jewish nation. Certainly the men, the women was different, but they can't just easily, because seemingly there was a terrible lack of good, kind values amongst the people of Moab. And to be a Jew is all-encompassing. It means to observe the mitzvos, to observe the commandments, and to be a certain kind of a person, to be a caring person, to be a giving person, to be a loyal person and an appreciative person. All of that is incumbent upon a Jew. And the people of Moab, there was an incident when the Jews were leaving Egypt in the desert, that the people of Moab, who should have had a great sense of appreciation to the Jewish people, because after all, our father Abraham saved Lot, who was the great-grandfather of Moab, and appreciation is a very Jewish trait and is a very human trait. If somebody does something for you, you should appreciate it. You should appreciate it now, and you should appreciate it for the years to come. We don't forget easily. You know, people say never forget the bad, but more so, never forget the good. The bad, maybe we can forgive and forget, but the good, we should always appreciate, and we should express that appreciation. And the people of Moab were very cruel to the Jews as they left. They didn't even want to give them water for pay in the desert. And therefore, the Torah says, Lo yavo Amoni Moavi b'kal Hashem. A person from Moab, a man from Ammon or from Moab, even if we accept him as a convert, they can't marry into the Jewish people. And this is the country that they go to. And this is very, very tragic. Why should a Jew leave the land of Israel and go to a place that's not a good place? That's not a place of people who are caring, who care, who do for others, who are kind, that's a bad place to go. But in any case, they went there. We're not going to discuss that part of it right now. And Machlon and Kilion married these two Moavi princesses, Ruth and Orpah. And tragedy strikes further. God is not pleased. They live there for 10 years. They die. Machlon, Kilion, the father, Elimelech. And now we come to where we're coming to. We're coming to the great Ruth. Naomi's going back to the land of Israel, and she says to her daughters-in-law, it's time to go home. Go back to your father's palace. What's there for you amongst the Jewish people? And Ruth recites those incredible words that she says to Naomi, no, I'm coming with you. She says the words of the pasuk, it's in chapter 1. She says, Al tifgi'i bi la'azvech. Don't press me to leave you. Lashuv me'acharecha, to go back from you. Ki el asher telchi elech, because where you will go, I will go. Uba asher talini alen, and where you will sleep, I will sleep. Amech ami, your nation is my nation. Elokayech Elokai, and your God is my God. Kasher tamusi amos, as you will die, so I will die. V'shamek haver, and I will be buried in that place, and I will live on in the next world. These are probably the most famous words that Ruth recites, and it's the paradigm of what it means to be a righteous convert. And this is one of the reasons why we recite Ruth on Shavuos, because the entirety of the Jewish people accepted the Torah on Shavuos. And here's Ruth, an example of an individual who accepted the Torah, who accepted to belong to the Jewish nation, to accept God's Torah, to Elokayech Elokai, your God is my God, your people are my people, your laws are my laws. A righteous convert accepts Torah in its entirety. It's not just Amech Ami. It's not just that you come to join the Jewish people, okay? But it's the details, Ba'asher Telchi Elech, where you will go, I will go, every detail of what a Jew is allowed to do, I will do. It's a total embracing of the whole totality of what it means to be a Jew. And as we'll proceed in the Megillah, we'll see how incredibly amazing it is to be a Jew. What does it mean to be a Jew, down to the details, the nitty-gritty social structure of Judaism versus other societies, every detail of what it means to be a Jew. So it's not just Elokayech Elokai, it's not just that your God becomes my God, it's not just Amech Ami, your nation is my nation, but it's all the other details of the laws. Okay, Basher Talini Alin, where a Jew can stay, I can stay, where a Jew can walk, I can walk, where a Jew can even be buried, I can be buried, the way that you live, the way that you die, the whole thing. It's a totality of what it means to be a Jew, and Ruth embraces it all. So why? Naomi tells her, you have nothing for you when you come back to the land of Israel. Why don't you have anything for you? Well, I'm poor. When they came to the land of Moab, they were very, very wealthy, prestigious family. Now, what do they have? Naomi is by herself, and probably she suspects that she's going to be an outcast to Jewish society because they abandoned the Jewish people in their time of need, okay, for whatever the good reasons. Okay, and that's a discussion for another time. But whatever the good reasons, they abandoned the Jewish people. There was a famine, they were wealthy, they were prestigious, and they left. Even if the reason was because they couldn't bear to hear the cries of the Jews, if they could have their fellow brethren, and they couldn't help them sufficiently, you know what? Even if you can't help somebody, you could be there for them. Okay? You know, we're living now in a time that lots of people are locked down, lots of people are in quarantine in their houses, and people, what could you do to help another Jew? You know, sometimes a person feels like I could do something, I could go, I could visit, maybe I can't even visit them. But a message over here of the Megillah Ruth is, even if you don't know what you actually can do, being there for another person is huge. Okay, you could call them on the phone. Well, in the time of Ruth, they couldn't call them on the phone, but you can. Okay, the concept that we don't abandon another Jew, that is huge. And Naomi understands that they had abandoned the Jewish people. How are they going to be welcomed back? And what does Ruth have to look forward to anyway? She was a princess. And coming back in poverty, they had lost all their wealth. They lost everything. What are you coming back for? And who's going to marry you? It was not clear amongst the people that the law was to marry, that they could marry a convert from, a woman convert from Moab. Okay, they thought that perhaps they couldn't marry anyone from Moab. So what are you coming back for? And Ruth, our new favorite heroine, says, I'm coming back for truth. I'm coming back because I believe in it. I'm coming back because I know that it's good and that it's right. And this is the kind of life I want to have. And I'm prepared to pay the price for it. You know, nothing comes cheap. You pay for everything. And the more valuable something is, the more you're prepared to pay for it. And Ruth understood the tremendous value of Judaism, the tremendous value of Torah, tremendous value of being part of God's people. And she said, it's worth it to me, regardless. Whatever the consequences, I am coming with you. And the good character of Ruth, I'm not going to abandon you, Naomi. Okay? Now, my father of blessed memory would say that there are very few examples of mothers-in-laws and daughters-in-laws in the Torah writings. Okay? Who do you know who's a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law? I mean, you know the names perhaps, but you don't know them. You don't get to see their interactions. And the interactions of this beautiful mother-in-law and daughter-in-law of Ruth and Naomi is exemplary, is the example of a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law in Jewish literature and Jewish writings. And you'll see she would never abandon her mother-in-law. And we'll see in the next chapter what she will do, the kindness that she will do for her mother-in-law. Okay, really, really, really something. Which leads us to another aspect of why Ruth is read on Shavuos. And that is because the Torah that we had is called a Torah's Chesed, a Torah of kindness. Okay, now what defines kindness? Is kindness what we define, or is kindness what God defines? The answer is kindness is as God defines it. Because to be kind in an improper place ends up being cruelty, ends up being unkind. You be kind to the criminal, and then maybe you're not being so kind to the victim. Society will lose out because of your purported kindness, because you think this is kindness, but in fact it might not be. So we follow the laws of the Torah in the determination of what is kindness. But once we know what that kindness is, it's to the nth degree. We do it in totality, and we're about to see that Ruth deserves to come to be part of the Jewish people, and is what this amazing woman. And let me tell you something about Ruth. Okay? Who was her ancestry? And I think that ancestry is an important discussion, because sometimes people feel like, I don't come from the most perfect of places, so, you know, like, then what? Okay? And the answer is, hold yours on tight, and you'll see then what. You'll hear about the great Ruth and her less than perfect ancestry, and what happens from her. So her less than perfect ancestry. The birth of Moab is recorded in the Torah early on in Chumash Bereshis, okay, right after the destruction of Sodom. Lot was a nephew of Avraham Avinu, of our father Abraham, and Lot made a terrible decision. Lot decided to leave Abraham, with whom he had traveled for so long. He'd made a decision to leave him for one reason, and the reason was money. They say money is the root of all evil, and lots of evil comes from money. You could do lots of good with money too, as we'll see that too. But Lot left Abraham with money. He saw that there was the land of Sodom, and it looked beautiful, lush gardens, lots of financial opportunities. And Lot decided that he was going to leave. He was going to go there. The immediate catalyst for his leaving, maybe you know, was that there was an argument between the shepherds of Lot and the shepherds of Abraham, okay, regarding if the land of Israel belongs to them now or later. And Lot's shepherds allowed the sheep to graze and in other people's property. And Abraham said, absolutely not. Jews are honest. Okay, there's if we get the land, when we get the land, it's ours, and until then, it's not. And we can't just graze like that. And they had a part, as friends. And by the way, that's how people need to part as friends, and be loyal to our family, even under less than perfect circumstances. So Lot goes to Sodom, and Sodom was a very, very wicked place. Okay, money was their raison d'etre, that was their motivation, what moved them and shook them. And Lot went there, and it didn't take very, very long, and God decreed that the land of Sodom had to be destroyed, because the wickedness of Sodom was far, 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 far beyond what God's patience could allow. Why? God is a merciful God. But come back to what we just said. Mercy is with truth. Okay? Chesed ve'emes nashaku. Kindness and truth has to meet, because you know why? Because if you let a place like Sodom just keep going and keep up their bad work, then what are the cries of the people, the victims of their terrible, terrible, horrific actions? You say, well, be nice to Sodom. No, don't be nice to Sodom. Be nice to the world. And if you're nice to the world, then the whole world will be a better place, even if it means the destruction of Sodom. And Sodom was destroyed But before Sodom was destroyed, in the merit of Abraham, Lot was saved. And Lot was saved, and his two daughters came with him, and they ran away, and they thought that the world had come to an end. They saw terrible destruction. It was almost like they were the lone survivors of a Holocaust. And they came, they were running, and they saw that the world that they knew no longer existed, and they were afraid for their future. What is going to be? Is there going to be no world left? Like the flood? It's all over? And these two daughters did something that was forbidden, was unacceptable, was immoral, was awful, but they did it because they thought that the world was over, and they wanted the world to continue and to have children to perpetuate the universe. And in the end, and they had relations with their father, each one, and they became pregnant and they had children. And this girl named her son Moab, from my father. And that's a disgusting name. It was a disgusting act. Why'd she do that? Okay? And the answer of why she did that, why she named this child Moab, is because, there are other religions that they chose a different path. They chose to say, this was a miraculous birth. This is a child of God. And a new religion starts built on falsehood. But this woman said, you know what? I will suffer the shame forever and for eternity. I will call this child Moab, which means from my father, so that it shouldn't be built on falsehood, and it shouldn't end up being a rebellion against God himself. And this is the great-great-great-grandmother of Moab, of Ruths, I'm sorry. But why do they this? So there's this piece of truth, okay, of preparedness to suffer shame and embarrassment, okay, for the sake of truth. And that was what she got from this great-great-grandmother. But the question remains, why did Lot deserve to be saved? We said it was in the merit of Abraham. Why would this child Moab deserve to be born? And the rabbis teach us, Moab deserved to be born. These girls deserve to be saved because, you know what? Out of Moab, there was a great woman who was born, and her name was Ruth. Whoa, 1 second. Ruth wasn't born for hundreds of years later. There were millions of Moavis who were born in the meantime. There was a nation, there was societies, there was a country. It just continued and continued. And you say they deserve to be saved for this one woman? And the answer is yes, yes. Such is the power of one person or one woman. The world before you, the world after you. How much of an impact can you really have through your own actions? Tremendous, just think about it. The whole Moab deserved to live in the merit of this one woman, Ruth. I think that gives us pause for thought, okay? One person could make a tremendous impact on the world, not only the world that she's living in, but the world that preceded her, and as we'll see, the world that followed her. It should be a tremendous inspiration. The power of one person, the power of one woman. Okay, so she's my next favorite heroine almost. Here she comes, okay? I could be somebody to make such a big impact. Okay, so what'd she do already that was so great? So we have point one of what she did that was so great. She joined the Jewish people. And yes, that is great. And she joined the Jewish people because of her quest for truth, okay? As she took after her great-great-grandmother. So yes, the quest for truth is something that makes somebody a hero, okay? But you know what? We think of heroes as full of fanfare and the limelight. We see them, we hear about them. They fly over, faster than the speed of light on top of high buildings, okay? But that's not what Jewish heroes look like. And we're about to meet this next favorite Jewish heroine, Ruth. And we see her in a totally different light, okay? She's not out there. She's not loud. She's not in the limelight, quite to the contrary. Chapter 2 begins. Now Ruth and Naomi have come back to the land of Israel. And it happened, although nothing happens. God is running this world and nothing just happens. Everything that happens is with a purpose. And if we could merit to find our purpose, and surely our general purpose is to do like Ruth said in the beginning, Amech Ami, Elokayach Elokai, to belong to this nation, to observe the mitzvos, to embrace God, okay? that's our first general purpose. And then there's the specific purpose of individuals. So what is my specific role? Okay? We got to look for it. And so nothing happens. Every opportunity that presents, as we'll soon see, every opportunity that's orchestrated. You know, the first of the 13 fundamentals of Jewish faith is an imam in be'emunah shlema, I believe with a complete belief, or I know with a complete confidence, shahabore, that the Creator, Yisbarach Shemo, may His name be blessed, who borei umanhig l'chol haberuim. He alone created and guides all of the creations. V'hu levado, and who He alone, asav oseh v'yaseh l'chol hamasim. He does everything that happens, everything that happened, everything that happens, everything that will happen, is all perfectly orchestrated by the Creator of the world. So if Ruth and Naomi happen to come back during the time when the harvest season has begun, it's no coincidence. And parenthetically, do you know when the harvest season begins in the land of Israel? Now, right around now. Shavuos is called Chag HaKatzir, the festival of harvest. And so, of reaping, I'm sorry, not of harvest, of reaping. And that's another reason why we read the Megillah of Ruth on Shavuos, because this happened at the same time period of the Megillah and of now. Okay, so they come back at this time, and now comes the next thing. Okay, when it speaks about the holiday of Shavuos in the Torah, okay, in Leviticus chapter 23, so it talks about the holiday of Shavuos that we counted 49 days, as we have been counting. We're now at day number 48 between Pesach and Shavuos. And it says that we observe the holiday of Shavuos on that specific day, okay, for all generations. And then it has this enigmatic pasuk in the middle of the discussion of all of the Jewish holidays. And the pasuk says, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not remove completely the corners of your field as you reap, and you shall not gather the gleanings of your harvest. For the poor and the convert shall you leave them. Okay? It's talking about the holidays. And in the midst of the discussion of the holidays, it talks about what we refer to as matnos aniyim, the gifts to the poor. Gifts to the poor. What means gifts to the poor? I've heard of it, tzedakah, charity. What are gifts to the poor? Gifts to the poor are just one amazingly beautiful example of what it means to be a Jew. Okay? It's not only about charity. That's not our only interactions with the poor. There's something that's called gifts to the poor. And the examples are leket, shikha, and peah. Okay? So we'll talk about peah, we'll talk about leket, and we'll talk about rus, and it all comes together. Like everything else in Judaism, somehow it all comes together. Anyways, so there was not such a thing as government taxes and welfare for the poor exactly in the way that we're accustomed to thinking about it. The land of Israel, basically the Jews were farmers. Okay? There are other things I'm sure as well, but everybody got land. And Torah obligates that a corner of the land needs to be left for the poor. Okay? How big is the corner? So we say that biblically there's no commandment of how big that corner has to be. Okay, generally people left around 2% of their field, the corner for the poor. Now, what does it mean, the corner for the poor? The poor people had exclusive rights to that corner. Okay, in other words, it's a gift from the owner, from the landowner, to the poor people, not to a specific poor person, but to the poor people in general. And the poor people could come to this area and collect the gleanings, the reap, what they could reap. Okay. And if a person was more generous, they would leave a bigger portion. If a person was less generous, they would leave less. The poor person can't stay home sleeping and just, collect their checks. That's not how it worked. Poor people had to go and collect and work. Okay? In the Torah concept, Adam la'amal yulad, people were born to work la'amal peh, to work with their, by learning is a form of work. Okay? Developing ourselves is a form of work. If a person works through the fruits of their labor, ashrecha v'tovlach, the pasuk says, you are fortunate and it's good for you. It's a concept of working in a spiritual way, working in a physical way, working on ourselves, working toward our future, working for others. But the idea of you got to do something. But the poor people are never left abandoned. If I have a field, then means that you have something on the field too. okay? If it's a good year for us, it's a good year for everybody. There's a second type of matnos aniyim, that if a person was reaping in the field and he dropped something, he dropped a stalk or two, he can't turn back and pick it back up. You know why? Because he dropped it, the poor people can have it now. And the Torah says, because, and God is going to give you good, you, the landowner, you're going to get good because of the kindness that you're doing to the poor people. Oh, go slow. What kind of kindness did he do for the poor people? He was a little bit of a klutz, maybe. Okay, he dropped his stalk of wheat over here and another stalk of wheat over there and another stalk of wheat over there. And the poor person's picking it up. And because of that, God's going to repay him with some good? Answer, yes, absolutely. Okay, because end of the day, as a result of you, poor people had something more. And since they benefited because of you, then you will be repaid. And the rabbis teach us, surely, if you could imagine, if a poor person benefited because of you, even without your full intention, without your intention at all, you will be rewarded. Surely, if a person goes out of the way to help a fellow Jew, to help a poor person, then surely Hashem, God is going to repay them in great measure. Okay? So God wants to give us the opportunity to be beneficiaries of his blessings. We say in the Pirkei Avot and the Ethics of the Fathers that we read during these weeks, okay, we end it by saying, God wanted to give us merits. Therefore, he gave us the Torah and he gave us many mitzvahs. He wants to give us lots and lots of opportunities to do good. Every mitzvah is an opportunity. It's a responsibility, it's an obligation, but it's a tremendous opportunity to enrich ourselves, to enrich others, to receive great reward. Every mitzvah is amazing. And every mitzvah is given for our benefit. And we do it, we don't do mitzvahs because we're looking to benefit ourselves. That would be selfish. We're not selfish people. We do mitzvahs because God commanded us and because we want to do the right thing. Refer back, our pursuit of truth, right? Realize that every single mitzvah, in the way that it was given, to perform it in the way that God intended, is a tremendous opportunity for we ourselves in every which way. Okay? To benefit as people, when you give to the poor, you become a more caring, giving person. Okay? And to benefit in the long run with the reward that God will bestow upon us because we've done these things. Anyways, so, but what's it doing right here in the middle? Why is this commandment about this matnos aniyim, the gifts? And a gift, by the way, is not something that you give in a condescending way. It's not charity. It's not pity. It's not mercy. Okay, it's gifts. It's like to a colleague, you give a gift, perhaps. Okay, to a family member, you give a gift. You're not giving gifts to strangers, certainly not. Okay, well, it's not recommended. You give gifts to people that you care about, and it's with dignity. And that's the Jewish concept of how you take care of the poor. Okay, the poor are our brethren, our people, our family. We care about them, and we give it with dignity. So when it's true, so you say, well, how is it dignified? Okay, that this poor person is now going to collect that which dropped in the field. But the answer is that picture the scene. There's a big field. There's a lot of workers in the field. People are coming in, picking up the stalks of wheat. Okay, that's what you do during the time of reaping. That's what you do. So here's another person. Do you know if it's another worker? Do you know if it's not a worker? Is it the landowner's child? You don't know who it is. Somebody's coming to collect in the fields at this time like everybody else. And that's beautiful and that's signified. And it's a sense of personal responsibility on the part of everyone. The landowner has his responsibilities and the poor people have their responsibilities. And Torah, Judaism, is about responsibilities. Everybody has to feel a sense of responsibility regarding our own actions, responsibility for our fellow Jew. That's what Torah is about. And if everybody feels their sense of their responsibility and fulfills their responsibility, then society as a whole is tremendously enriched. So what's it doing here, right after that, when it mentions about the holiday of Shavuos in the Torah, that's when it mentions this. Because you know what? To remind us again and again, our Torah is a Torah's chesed. It's a Torah of kindness, of living kindness, of giving kindness. That's what this is all about. So they come at this time, and chapter 2, the second verse begins. Vatomer Ruth HaMoaviyah, Ruth, the Moabite convert, says El Naomi, She says, Elchana hasadeh v'alachta bashibolim. You know what? I'm going to go to the field and I'm going to start collecting the wheat, okay? And I want to do this. She doesn't wait for Naomi to say, listen, we're starving, you got to do something. Ruth was a well-learned woman, okay? She became a convert, she understood, she knew what the Torah laws were, and she was prepared to live with them. And before she was even asked by Naomi to do something, she offered. This is part of the Torah's chesed, part of what it means to be a good Jew, to be a seeker of truth and kindness, is to offer. Don't wait to be asked. You know, there's a project to be done, there's a class to be had, there's a synagogue that needs something. We don't wait to be asked. We ask. And that's what Ruth does. She volunteers. She says, Naomi, and she has pity on her mother-in-law. We were starting to say, she understands, and you know how difficult it must be for her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law knows that she abandoned the people. She's now a widow. She's bereft of her children. It's so tough. Now Ruth, for her part, was a princess. But you know what? This kind, next favorite heroine, says, I'm going to go and I'm going to do it. I'm going to go collect in the fields. You know, I'm younger than you. I'm more capable. I don't have to be so embarrassed. Nobody knows me anyways. Whatever her excuses that she said in order to make her mother-in-law feel good about the fact that Ruth was going to be doing this for her. Because Ruth previously said, you've done so much already. But you know, there's a way of doing kindness. Okay? There's a way of doing kindness. And Ruth does that. She volunteers. She says to Ruth, please, I'm going to go and I'm going to find favor. It's not going to be so difficult for me. Don't worry, here I am going. And Naomi's response is, L'chibiti, go. She takes her up on her offer. And you know, when you give a genuine offer of kindness, okay, people will be happy to take you up on their offer if they need it. And Naomi surely needed. So she goes, and the pasuk says, the verse says, Vayiker mikra, it happened to be. She comes chelkas hasad Boaz asher mimishpachas Elimelech. In whose field does she end up? She ends up in the field of Boaz. Now, really, we don't have so much time. If we had, or if it was a different topic, or maybe another time, another year, we could talk about Boaz, our next favorite hero, okay? Because Boaz was the Gadol Hadar, greatest man of the generation, and as we'll read, okay, or maybe you'll have opportunity yourself in shul or at home, okay, on Shavuos, by night, as the rabbi said, the Chabad minhag to recite it at night, be it during the day, whatever the custom is. But if you read it and you see the tremendous, tremendous kindness of Boaz, he's deserving to be a topic of his own, of another whole class, or many, many other whole classes. Again, he was the Gadol Hadar, he was a leader of the generation. And as a leader of the generation, and as the greatest Torah scholar of the generation, you know what else he was? He was the kindest person in the generation, okay? Because that's what it means to be a true Jew, to be the embodiment of Torah's chesed, of the Torah of loving kindness. And it's one whole picture. You can't be that epitome, that paradigm of kindness without learning the Torah, without understanding the Torah, without appreciating the intricacies of every Torah law, because altogether it's kindness, even that's unfathomable by us. Anyways, she goes to collect in this field. And sure enough, she catches there's something special about her. She catches their eye, not because she was out there, but to the contrary, because of her modesty. She catches the eye of Boaz himself and says, who is that? Okay, and he goes on. The way in the Megillah describes how the details of how he spoke to her and how he treated her and how humble she herself was. And he says to her, she says to him, she says, how come I found favor in your eyes? I'm just a stranger. But you know, there's no such thing as just a stranger in Jewish law or in Judaism. If you come to join the Jewish people are happy to welcome you with open arms. You're for real, you're coming with truth. Welcome, welcome. And Vayan Boaz says, Hagate, who got he godly. It was told to me, Kol asher asisas chamosei. Everything that you did for your mother-in-law, acharei mosi sheich, after your husband died. But you left your parents' house, and you left the home of your birthplace. And you came to a foreign country, to a different nation. They hadn't known in the past. Sometimes people are afraid of change. Oftentimes people are afraid of change. Just the fact that you don't know, what will it be like if I don't know, for a person who never observed Shabbos, like, what will it be like if I observe Shabbos? It's probably going to be difficult. It's probably going to be odd. It's different. You know what? The seekers of truth and kindness are prepared to go for it, okay? And Boaz says, we recognize the difficulty that it is to do something asher lo yadat tfol shilsham, that you didn't know before. We recognize that it's difficult, okay? And therefore, Yishalem Hashem pa'alech, God should repay you for your actions. Utihi maskortech shleima me'im Hashem, and your reward should be full from God, Elokei Yisrael, the God of Israel, asher bas lachasos tachas kanafav, that you came under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. Okay, we see when the allegory is, okay, when you come to seek refuge under the wings of God, it's a safe place. Okay, it's a safe place. It's a warm place. It's a good place. Okay, you came here. Yishalem Hashem Schapalech. God should repay you for your actions in totality. It should be full, paid in full. Okay, and God, refer back to what we just said. God runs the whole world. Okay, He has lots at His disposal. Even if the economy is a little shaky, God didn't lose any money. Okay, even if things are not the same or normal as they would have been, God is unchanging. Okay, so He can repay everybody for every single, and He does. Not only can He does, and He will. Okay, that's also incorporated in the 13 fundamentals of faith. It's 3 sections: the belief in God, the belief in the Torah, and the belief in reward and punishment. And all of this is also encompassed in the book of Ruths. Okay, the idea that she comes to embrace God and the Torah, and the idea that God rewards and He punishes. And you'll see, okay, and again, when you read Ruths on Shavuos, when you do it privately or publicly, or however you do it, keep your eyes open for God, Torah, and reward and punishment. Okay, and the totality of each one of those things. How beautiful, beautiful, beautiful it is. Anyways, so she says, okay, you've made me feel good. Thank you so much. I don't deserve it. Okay, it's not about herself. It's never about herself when it comes to Ruth. And that is another reason why she's our next favorite heroine. Because sometimes people think that if you're not about yourself, then you're going to be a pushover, you're going to be stepped on. Nice guys finish last. Okay, Ruth is a testimony that nice guys do not finish last. Far, far, far from finishing last. Nice guys, Hashem pays back. God pays back in totality. Okay, and you'll see it. You see it right over here. Okay, she goes to help out her mother-in-law, and Boaz, and she acts in a certain refined way, and she follows the meticulous laws of the Torah. For example, I told you that the tzleket, okay, if you dropped 1 or 2 stalks, so then it belongs to the poor. But what happens if you dropped 5 stalks? Okay, you know what? It doesn't belong to the poor. The landowner could go back and collect it. So do you think that, so the idea here is the fact that he sees the details of how she's observed the mitzvos, it's not just generally she does things, she's particular with the nuances of Torah law, and it really takes him. And he says to his workers, he says, treat her very, very well. He offers her food, and he tells her, don't ever go to any other fields. I have a lot of fields. Come, you have VIP status here. Okay, because why? Because he saw the kindness that she did with her mother-in-law, and he saw the way that she interacts with meticulous observance of the Torah laws, and he says, you're good to go. You're good to go. Don't go anyplace else. Okay, here's plenty. He takes care of her, and chapter 2 ends that she goes back home, okay, and Naomi speaks how wonderful it was that this happened, and how good God was to have her be, that of all the fields, this is the place that she entered. Chapter 3, okay, and where time is moving on, okay, but chapter 3 discusses, okay, another Torah law that Ruth observes, okay, it really is it's called Yibam. Okay, Yibam is kindness to the people who are no longer alive. If a man died with no children, so there's a mitzvah in the Torah for his brother, or in this case, we'll see for his close relative, to marry that woman, okay, and the children that will be born from the child will bring some kind of satisfaction to the soul of the deceased in the next world. And this is a very important, it's a concept that's not discussed so much. It's a kindness that comes with a lot of questions, okay? But the point that I want to make here, okay, is that when we embrace Torah and Torah life and Torah living, we have to realize that we have to live with a consciousness of the soul, okay? Consciousness that there's more going on in this world than we actually only see. We see just a tiny sliver of the realities of the world. Okay? We live in a sliver of time, right? We're in the year 5,780, okay? So even if a person lives for 100 years, it's only just a tiny sliver of the history of the world. If a person knows however many people they know, okay, the Jewish people, maybe 15 million people in the world out of 8 billion, or just a speck of a sliver of a person, of people, okay? But all of that is just a sliver of reality, because there's a reality of a soul and the world to come. And when we live with the consciousness, sometimes people have a hard time living with the reality of their own lives, of the here and now, of the present moment. Think of this, Ruth, she's a young woman, okay, with, as we said, maybe a future, maybe not a future, lots of uncertainty, okay? She's a widow, she lost her husband, she lost her wealth, albeit that she did it willingly in the first place. It wasn't willingly. When she married into the family of Elimelech, she was marrying into prestige, into money, into wealth, into everything good. It wasn't a thing. But then she made a choice to continue to live this true life, this right life, even though it was like riches to rags. Okay, now she's collecting in the fields. Like, why do that? But the answer is that a person has to live with the consciousness of eternity, of something bigger, of a soul, of the next world, of there's more going on than meets the eye. And when we do that, then we can live in a good way, in a real way, in a way of truth and with hopefulness that we perhaps couldn't live with if we're just living just in the here and now. So the kindness of chapter 2 that Ruth does is a kindness of a physical sense, a kindness for the here and now. It's a kindness of getting food and giving food to her mother-in-law and saving her the shame and the embarrassment in the here and now. It's a here and now type of reality of kindness that the Torah expects from us. But there's chapter 3, and the chapter 3 is a recognition that there's a bigger world. It's not good enough to physically feed my brethren. I have to spiritually feed my brethren. It's not good enough to provide for my life now. I have to provide for the eternal life, which comes in the next world. There's the Chaim and the Mason. He says, you did kindness for your mother-in-law and for the deceased. Okay, yeah, it's true. There are things that we can do, even for the people that are no longer with us. Comes Shavuos, right? And people go to shul and they'll say Yizkar and they'll light a yahrzeit candle. And like the rabbi said, right, they'll dedicate a Torah learning. It should be for a merit, for aliyas neshama, for the uplifting of the soul. Okay, these are realities. They're not the realities that necessarily you see. It's not the pen that you could pick up, okay, or the computer that you could, punch some numbers on. But there's realities that exist that we don't see, but they exist. The great Chafetz Chaim wrote 100 years ago, more than that, perhaps more than 100 years ago, with the advent of technology. So he said that much of the technology, he gave many reasons why now technology, and he said, okay, and this is something that probably we could relate to, we could hear even more than it was at that point, that technology is supposed to strengthen our faith in God. You say, that's so strange. Technology strengthen our faith in God. So, back in the day, there were concepts that maybe back in the day, people had no problem with faith. Okay, maybe they sinned. Okay, people have always sinned. But the idea, the recognition of a world beyond that which we can see is something that people were able to wrap their head around in a much, much, much better way than post-Enlightenment. Okay, Enlightenment made it more difficult for people to live with the consciousness when humanism meant that the focus shifted from God to man. Okay, so pre-humanism, okay, and pre-enlightenment, people were able to wrap their head around the concepts of God and spirituality far better than post-humanism. So the Chafetz Chaim says that, but one thing happens with technology. You begin to realize it in a real way that there's more that's going on than you can actually see. Imagine this, here I am, I'm in one location, you're in some other location, and you can see me, and you could hear me. How could that be? I'm not there, okay? Back in the day, forget back in the day, half an hour ago, you shut your computer, and somebody went to tell you, no, there's somebody, Mrs. Friedman, and she could talk to you, and she could see you, or you could see her. What? It's ridiculous. How could she see me from so far away? Or how could I see her from so far away? Or how could, what? I don't see anything here. One moment later, okay, there's a different reality. Or you come to the understanding that people could see you, okay, privacy is a thing of the past. People could see you, if people could see you from far, far away, or people could hear you from far, far away without you seeing them, okay, without you even knowing that they exist. Certainly God who created the world could see us, okay, people could, hackers could hack into, could predict your actions. You know, I don't know, Google tells me how to reply to my emails, right? Okay, how do they know what I'm thinking? So the Chafetz Chaim writes, God put it into the minds of man to create inventions so that it can make it easier for us to understand things that have become too hard for us, okay? And understand that if a man could predict your thoughts through whatever the algorithms are done, okay? Certainly God knows what we're thinking. Certainly God knows what we're thinking. And God knows our hardships, God knows our challenges, and God rewards us for every good decision that we make, okay? For every mitzvah that we observe. And we have to live with a consciousness of God, of a soul, of another world, of the next world. And that's what chapter 3 and the mitzvah of Yibum, chapter 3 in Ruths is all about. And Ruth lives with that consciousness. Ruth lives with that knowledge. And as I said, okay, Boaz is our next favorite hero, but we don't have time to talk about it. Chapter 4 is the actual redemption, is when Ruth goes, the whole procedure of Yibum happens, and the field is bought back, and Ruth marries Boaz, and she conceives, and she has a child, okay? And that child, and that's in the 4th chapter, and that child, okay, it says that child, okay, is called Vatikrena Shmo Oved. His name is Oved, okay? Oved comes from the root word of Eved, or avod, to work, okay? And Ruth has a child whose name is Oved, because remember, Ruth was a being of doing, okay? She didn't lie back complacently. She did. She went. She made a decision. She sought the truth. She found the truth. She worked on it. She went. She pursued it. Okay. She wanted to do kindness. She didn't just want to do kindness. She did kindness. She worked at it. She went to those fields. Each thing, whatever was the right thing to do, she worked at it and she did it. And she had this child, and the child, in fact, is called Oved, okay, which means to work, worker. And Megillah tells us, Hu avi Yishai avi David. Do you know who this Oved is? Oved was the father of Yishai, Jesse. And Yishai was the father of David. David Melech Yisrael, David, the king of Israel, the future of the Jewish people, the ancestor of the King Mashiach that we're waiting for, okay? And Ruth was called Ima Shel Malchus, the mother of royalty. She merited to be the great-grandmother of Mashiach. You know, she merited a very long life. She lived to see Oved and Yishai and David's son Shlomo. And it says in the Navi, it says in the prophet, it says, okay, and Shlomo was, it refers to the chair of royalty that was next to the great King Solomon, great King Shlomo. You know who was sitting on that chair of royalty? It was Ruth, this great woman who worked and persevered and pursued and sought truth and sought out kindness and lived with that and was humble. It didn't have to be the heroine out in the limelight. Okay? She was the good person, the really good person who pursued that truth and kindness and merited, as we said, to be the reason for the existence of so many generations before. But she merited a tremendous future as well, a future for her own personal self and a future for all generations, a future for eternity, as the great-grandmother of Mashiach. Parenthetically, okay, David, her grandson, great-grandson, okay, wrote that was born on Shavuos. That's another reason why we read Ruths on Shavuos. He was born on Shavuos, and he wrote the Tehillim. Okay, and the Tehillim is something that we also read on Shavuos. And with this, we conclude, okay, a brief overview of the Megillah of Ruths and my next favorite Jewish heroine, a woman to emulate and to encourage us that maybe sometimes we go from riches to rags, but if we do the right things, we can go back from the rags to even far, far, far greater riches. Have a beautiful Yom Tov, everybody. All the best.